So this is the unit over the Renaissance, and it is lesson 2 over Renaissance art and architecture. Hello class, welcome. How are you guys doing? Hope you guys are doing great. So today on our agenda, first we are going to do a bell ringer to review over the last lesson, over the intro to the Renaissance, and then we'll just kind of go over it. And then we will watch a video to get us ready for our new lesson today over the Renaissance art and architecture. Then we'll do our PowerPoint and notes. And then you guys will be assigned a matching assignment to go over the PowerPoint. And then we will do a little art activity in class. And then lastly, you guys will start your artwork research project. I know it kind of sounds like a lot, but you guys are definitely more than capable of achieving all of this today for sure. So let's do our bell ringer, and I'll read it over for you guys. So the question is, in what ways do you think society was being reborn during the Renaissance? Remember, Renaissance means reborn. So we kind of gave a brief overview last time of some changes happening during the Renaissance. So just use your best memory, and you can look back at your notes if you need to, just to give a little summary of what you think society, how it was being reborn. So I'll give you guys about 5 or so minutes to do that right now. Alrighty, so now that we're finished discussing, going over our bell ringer, we're going to watch a short video to review the Renaissance art and architecture. It'll just be about 5 minutes or so. Alright, so now that we're finished with our video and we have a good idea of what we're getting into, we're going to go over our essential questions for today. So question 1 is, what was the importance of art and architecture during the Renaissance? Number 2, what are some characteristics of Renaissance art and architecture? Number 3 is, who were some of the artists during the Renaissance? So those are some good questions. So just keep those in your mind as we go through our PowerPoint today. And you should be able to answer those after today. So you guys can take your own notes, or if you'd like, you are more than welcome to use these guided notes that I filled out, and these do have some more information on these notes than what's just on the PowerPoint, and you can add to it if you want. If not, that's fine, it's up to you. So before we get into the Renaissance art, let's look first at what came before, which is the medieval art. So they're obviously still very different, but medieval art just lacked depth, perspective, background. Those are like art terms, which just means that it really wasn't very geometrical or like mathematical, and the art just wasn't very realistic at all. It wasn't 3D or anything like that. And the themes of the art was mostly religious, and they didn't really show emotions realistically. And they had icons that they portrayed in their art, which were figures or people that were like supernatural or religious figures. And the most famous icon is Madonna, which is Mary, the mother of Jesus, right? And this is the Madonna and Child by Duccio, and he was the first to do this painting of that. And as you can see, you know, she doesn't look too happy, no real emotion, just kind of there. And the baby here doesn't really look like a baby. It just kind of looks like a full-grown human being in her hands there. And another example, because a lot of people did the same icons, and another is this one by a different artist. And this one, still not very realistic. You know, he looks like a fully grown person. He has a full head of hair. She does not look very happy at all. So that pretty much sums up what medieval art was like. So in contrast, the Renaissance art was much more colorful and just more vibrant and brighter and just a little bit more happier, I guess. So it reflected the Greek and Roman art, of course, and it had more depth, linear, atmospheric perspective, much more detailed backgrounds. Humans were the focus and their real emotions, so people could relate to it. More realistic, and they used frescoes, which I think they're sort of kind of like murals, which is they used watercolor to paint on wet plastered walls so that the ink or the paint would sink through it and it would stay there for a very long time. So now we're going to get into some of the famous artists during that time. So first is Masaccio. He focused on nature, perspective, three-dimensional bodies, and he was the first to paint nudes since the ancient Greeks and Romans. So pretty important there. So his most famous piece of work is the Tribute Money, which I believe this is St. Peter and possibly Jesus and his disciples, and they are kind of getting on to the tax collectors in this scene right here. And this is really cool because it shows how the perspective is, if you start right here, everything else, the building and the other people, you know, the foreground and the background is all the right sizes. So it all looks realistic in proportion to the right size. Next one is Donatello. He was a sculptor and he focused on the human body. He was the first to sculpt nudes since the ancients. And he had the first life-size freestanding nude, which is this right here, David, which is the David from the Bible that slayed the giant Goliath with the little slingshot. And as you can see him standing on top of Goliath's head. So, pretty interesting there. Next we have Botticelli, and he was very decorative and linear style as well. And he liked to paint long necks and sloping shoulders and pale and soft bodies, which definitely reflected Greek and Roman culture. Because here, I'm sure you guys have seen this one, the Birth of Venus, right here. This is the goddess of love and beauty that the Greeks and Romans looked up to. And of course, the other name for the same goddess is Aphrodite, right? Because the Roman Greeks just switched the names, but they essentially had the same mythology. So that's a real famous one for sure. Next is Bruno Secchi. He was an architect, and he liked simple, symmetrical, and balanced buildings. And he designed the largest dome in Europe since the ancients. And you guys have probably seen this in Italy, right? The Dome of Florence, which is still there today. So that's pretty amazing. And then Leonardo da Vinci, which we've all heard of. He was the classic Renaissance man. He did everything, you name it, he did it. And he was a painter, a writer, a scientist, inventor, much more. And he focused on technical perfection, and he really developed the chiaroscuro technique, which just meant he used shadows to make light and dark shadows on the painting to show like 3D figures to make it just more realistic. So his most famous portrait, and most famous portrait in the world also, is the Mona Lisa, because she is the first to smile in a painting. So it's pretty amazing. And of course some people say, her eyes follow you. I don't know about that. And also he painted the most famous religious painting in the world, which you guys have probably seen. And I actually found it here in my house. And here it is. You can see it here. It's the Last Supper with Jesus and his disciples. So that's a really famous one as well. And he has many more too. So next is Raphael. He was a painter. He had perspective. He focused on harmony, beauty, and peace, all those good things. And one of his famous paintings is the School of Athens here. And I like this little one picture because it labels all the philosophers in it. And you have Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem. So the math, and literature and history people, they're all here. And this one also divides and labels the philosophers into their subjects. So it's pretty cool. They didn't just slap some paint up here. They put a lot of thought and effort into these paintings to make it really more than just something to look at, but something to really ponder and think about. And then we have Michelangelo. He was a painter and sculptor, and he focused on the strength and ambitions of people. So one of his sculptures is the Pieta, which translates to piety, which just means being very religiously devoted. And this is Mary and Jesus after his crucifixion, a very famous one. And he also painted this, the creation of man, that's God and Adam. And some people think he was trying to paint a representation of the human brain. And there's kind of studying that still today, so that's pretty amazing. And he painted this. This is just a small snippet part of the larger mural or fresco that he painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, which he had to lay upside down to paint for hours, and it took him years to finish, which is what our art activity is actually about. So you guys can kind of understand and feel what he had to go through to do that. And then the more famous David sculpture is this one by Michelangelo that he also did. Alright, so are there any questions or comments at all? Alright then, so I'm going to give you guys your matching assignment, which is your homework. You can have some time to work on at the end of class. Just bring it back, and it's just to match the artist to their description, just what we went over to make sure you have a good idea of that. Okay, so we're going to do our art activity, which is about Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel. So you guys can get underneath your desk and kind of be upside down and put your paper underneath your desk. And you're going to draw like a happy scene, and then you can do something of your choice you can draw, and then you draw a car, and then a sad scene. So just lay beneath your desk and draw on this paper upside down, just like Michelangelo did. So I'll give you guys about 5 minutes to do that, and then you guys can turn it in. Alright, so now that we're finished with the art activity, you guys understand now what Michelangelo had to go through to paint all that. We're going to move on to our art project activity. And you won't finish this today, obviously. I'll give you some time to work on it, but this is where you guys can choose your own piece of artwork from the Renaissance, whatever you want, and you're going to do some research on it, and you're going to answer these questions about the piece of artwork and about the artist, just about their life, and then how they were influenced, and what the message or meaning of the art was, and what it affected, and why you chose it, and if you like it, and why you don't like it, and just kind of analyze the artwork. And you guys will be able to share that with each other. And we might make, hang up the pieces of art in your papers and make a little art gallery in our classroom, which would be really cool. Are there any questions about any of your assignments? Okay. So then we will go ahead and wrap up. So I gave you some time to work on your art project. Don't worry about it. You can finish it for homework. So our wrap up here is finish your artwork research project, finish your matching assignment, and bring those two back to turn in next class. And start thinking about, for our next lesson, music and literature during the Renaissance. You might have already, been exposed to some of that. So kind of get thinking about that. And that's all I have for today. You guys did a really, really great. Good job. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. So be safe. Bye.